Scotland, Part 1.
Scotland Table of Contents.
Dr. Sydney Soclof. drsidney22@gmail.com. 2022.
Narration by Dr. Sydney Soclof.
Zoe Phonemes.
And Nathan Coltove.
To play or pause the video, select the appropriate icon, or press the K key or the space bar.
The right and left arrow keys will advance or retard the video by 5 seconds, respectively, in both the play and pause modes.
If you see this in the upper right corner of the video, and you select the left mouse button, it will give you a list of recommended videos or a playlist of related videos. If you select this arrow and then exit the full screen, you will see a display of the chapters like this example. This is the listing of the first 6 chapters, and by scrolling down, you can see the rest of the chapters. Chapter 2. Geography of Scotland.
I am a Scotsman, the poet and novelist Sir Walter Scott wrote in the 19th century. Therefore I had to fight my way into the world.
Scotland, in Scottish Gaelic, Alba, is part of the United Kingdom, and constitutes the northern third of the island of Great Britain.
This is Scotland as shown as being part of the United Kingdom and in the northwest part of Europe.
Scotland shares a border with England to the south and is bounded by the North Sea to the east, the Atlantic Ocean to the north and west, and the North Channel and Irish Sea to the southwest.
The west coast of Scotland is fringed by deep indentations, sea lochs or fjords, and by numerous islands, varying in size from mere rocks to the large land masses of Lewis and Harris, Skye, and Mull.
The island clusters of Orkney and Shetland lie to the north.
Scotland has over 790 islands, many of which are very small. These include the archipelagos of Shetland and Orkney, and the Inner and Outer Hebrides.
This is a relief map of Scotland showing the main regions of the southern uplands, the heavily populated central lowlands with the main cities of Edinburgh and Glasgow, the Grampian Mountains, and the Northwest Highlands.
Then there are the island groups of the Inner and Outer Hebrides, the Isles of Orkney, and the Shetland Islands.
Only 30 miles, 50 kilometers, of land separate the Firth of Clyde and the Firth of Forth, the two great estuarine inlets on the west and east coasts, respectively.
This is the Central Belt and the Central Lowlands of Scotland, which the most populous region of Scotland.
The mainland of Scotland comprises the northern third of the land mass of the island of Great Britain, which lies off the northwest coast of continental Europe. The total area is 79,000 square kilometers, 30,400 square miles, comparable to the size of the Czech Republic, making Scotland the 117th largest country in the world.
These are the Inner and Outer Hebrides island groups on the west side of Scotland.
Scotland's only land border is with England, and runs for 60 miles, 96 kilometers, between the River Tweed on the east coast and the Solway Firth in the west.
This is a sign marking entry to Scotland on the A7, on the border of Dumfries and Galloway.
This is the border at Marshall Meadows Bay on the East Coast Main Line Railway.
The island of Ireland lies only 30 kilometers, 20 miles, from the southwestern peninsula of Kintyre.
The total area of Scotland is 79,000 square kilometers, 30,400 square miles. That is comparable to the size of the Czech Republic in Europe.
Scotland is a little bit smaller than the U.S. state of South Carolina, 83,000 square kilometers, and a little larger than West Virginia, 63,000 square kilometers.
This shows the proximity of Scotland to Ireland.
Scotland is traditionally divided into three topographic areas: the Highlands in the north, the Central Lowlands, and the Southern Uplands. These latter two areas are included in the Lowlands Cultural Region.
The north of Scotland has many mountains, and few people live there. Most people live in the Lowlands, Edinburgh, Glasgow, Aberdeen and Dundee, or around the coast.
South of the Central Lowlands or Central Belt are the Southern Uplands, a hilly region, but not to the same extent as the Highlands in the north.
The Great Glen, or in Gaelic, Glenmore, is in the Highlands region, between the Grampian Mountains and the Northwest Highlands.
The Great Glen is a geological fault or rift valley that extends all of the way across the Highlands of Scotland. 80 miles from coast to coast in this valley are a series of lochs, including Loch Ness and Loch Lomond.
This is the central belt in the lowlands of Scotland between the Highlands and the Southern Uplands.
The Central Belt is the industrial center of Scotland and where most of the population resides, especially near the major cities of Glasgow and Edinburgh.
While Scotland makes up about 1/3 of the area of the United Kingdom, it is less than 1/10 of the population, of which the greatest concentration, nearly 3/4, lives in the Central Belt, where 3.5 million people out of a total population of 5.44 million.
This is the northern area of Scotland with the Highlands, the Inner and Outer Hebrides, and the Orkney Islands.
This map shows the Orkney and Shetland Islands.
This map shows these Orkney and Shetland Islands.
This map shows many islands of the Inner and Outer Hebrides.
This map shows many islands of the Inner and Outer Hebrides.
The tallest mountain in Scotland is Ben Nevis, which is also the tallest mountain in the British Isles.
The Killen, Scottish Gaelic, and Kilthen or Kiltheen, is a range of rocky mountains located on the Isle of Skye.
Chapter 3. The population of Scotland. The total population of Scotland is 5.425 million. These are the most populous cities: Glasgow 578,000, Edinburgh 446,000, Aberdeen 180,000, Dundee 142,000, Inverness 42,000, and Stirling 33,000.
This is the population density of Scotland. We see the high densities around the cities of Edinburgh, Glasgow, and Aberdeen.
We also note that the most populous region is in the central belt of the Central Lowlands between Edinburgh and Glasgow. We also note the very low population density in the Highlands.
This is a Scotland population cartogram. The size of councils is in proportion to their population. We see the large population concentration in the Glasgow and Edinburgh areas, and the smaller concentration up near Aberdeen and Dundee.
The largest city of Scotland is Glasgow with a city population of almost 600,000. And a metropolitan area population of 1.7 million.
Glasgow is once one of the world's leading industrial cities, and now lies at the centre of the Greater Glasgow conurbation which dominates the Scottish lowlands.
Edinburgh is the capital and second largest city of Scotland. It is one of Europe's largest financial centres.
Edinburgh was the hub of the Scottish Enlightenment of the 18th century, which saw Scotland become one of the commercial, intellectual and industrial powerhouses of Europe.
Scottish waters consist of a large area in the North Atlantic and the North Sea, and contain the largest oil reserves in the European Union.
Chapter 4. The Scottish Diaspora. The Scottish diaspora or emigration was first to Ireland, mainly to Ulster and Northern Ireland, also south to England. Later starting in about 1750 to the US, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand.
This is Ulster, with the Northern Ireland part in pink and the Republic of Ireland part in green.
The Ulster Scots migrated to Ireland in large numbers both as a result of the government-sanctioned plantation of Ulster, a planned process of colonization that took place by James I of England, James VI of Scotland, on land confiscated from members of the Irish nobility who had fled Ulster under pressure from the English.
Many of the Ulster Scots later emigrated from Ireland in large numbers to what is now the United States, and to other places in the British Empire, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, the West Indies, British India, and to a lesser extent to Argentina and Chile.
Scotch-Irish, or Scotch-Irish, is a traditional term for Ulster Scots who emigrated to America.
Historically, England has been the main beneficiary of Scottish emigration, especially during economic downturns.
Large-scale emigration was to the United States, Canada, and Australia until the late 20th century.
Despite the large amount of emigration, the population of Scotland has remained relatively stable since 1900.
The pattern of migration began to reverse when the North Sea petroleum industry brought many people to the northeast and the north, not only from various parts of Scotland and the United Kingdom but also from other countries, notably the United States. Scotland is now increasingly seen as an attractive place to work and live.
There was a very large immigration to North America from both Scotland and Ireland in the 18th and 19th centuries. The immigration from Scotland was mainly from the Highlands, especially in wake of the Highland clearances in the 1770s.
There were also Scots from the Highland regiments of the British Army that fought in the French and Indian War. Their descendants tended to side with the Crown in the American Revolution, and many fled to Canada during and after the war.
There was also a major immigration of Scots from the impoverished West Highlands and Hebrides in colonial days, mostly from about 1720 to 1776. They mainly landed at the port of Wilmington, and then made their way up the Cape Fear River to establish settlements along the way in North Carolina.
There was also a heavy immigration of Ulster Scots, or Scotch-Irish as they were known in America. This was mainly during colonial days from about 1715 to 1776. These landed in Philadelphia and other ports nearby, and then immigrated westward into Pennsylvania, and down the Shenandoah Valley into the Carolinas and down into Georgia.
The Ulster Scots, known as the Scots-Irish, or Scotch-Irish, in North America were descended from people originally from the Scottish lowlands, as well as the north of England and other regions, who colonized the province of Ulster in Ireland in the 17th century.
After several generations, their descendants left for America and struck out for the frontier, in particular the Appalachian Mountains, providing an effective buffer for attacks from American Indians. Most of the Scots-Irish settled in the Appalachian region shown above after leaving Ireland and Britain in the 18th century. Many still live in there today, but others have moved to places still further west.
In the colonial era, the Scots-Irish were usually simply referred to as Irish, with the Scots or Scotch prefixes becoming popular when the descendants of the Ulster emigrants wanted to differentiate themselves from the Catholic Irish, who were flocking to many American cities in the 19th century.
Unlike the Highlanders and Lowlanders, the Scots-Irish were usually patriots in the Revolution. They have been noted for their tenacity in their cultural contributions to the United States.
Chapter 5. The History of Scotland.
The name Scotland derives from the Latin word Scotia, meaning land of the Scots, a Celtic people from Ireland called the Scoti, who settled on the west coast of Great Britain about the 5th century AD.
Caledonia is the Latin name given by the Romans to the land north of their province of Britannia, beyond the frontier of their empire, roughly corresponding to modern-day Scotland.
The name Caledonia is derived from Caledonii, the Roman name of a tribe in the northern part of what is now Scotland. The name Caledonia has often been applied to Scotland, especially in poetry.
The late Latin word Scotia, land of the Gaels, was initially used to refer to Ireland. By the 11th century at the latest, Scotia was being used to refer to Gaelic-speaking Scotland north of the River Firth, alongside Albania or Albany, both derived from the Gaelic Alba. The use of the words Scots and Scotland to encompass all of what is now Scotland became common in the late Middle Ages.
The period of earliest known occupation of Scotland by man is from the Paleolithic era, also known as hunter-gatherers period. Hunted for fish and wild animals and gathered fruit, nuts, plants, roots and shells.
The earliest prehistoric tools found still surviving in Scotland date from 3000 BC. During the Neolithic Age, Scotland was home to nomadic hunter-gatherers as well as the first farmers who built permanent dwellings.
The remains of domestic and ritual buildings from this time make up the heart of Neolithic Orkney World Heritage Site.
This is the Roman Empire near its greatest extent in 124 AD. Note that it did not include Scotland.
The written history of Scotland begins when the Roman Empire came to Britain, and the Romans invaded what is now England and Wales, calling it Britannia.
The Roman Empire at its greatest extent included Britannia, the lower two-thirds of Britain. However, the Romans never were able to fully conquer what is present-day Scotland, then called Caledonia, nor did they reach Ireland, then called Hibernia.
This map shows the location of the peoples of northern Britain in the Roman era, around 150 AD.
Despite building two impressive fortifications, Hadrian's Wall to defend the northern border, and the Antonine Wall across central Scotland to advance it forward, the Romans never truly conquered Caledonia.
Unable to defeat the Caledonians and Picts, the Romans eventually withdrew and over time retreated away from Britain.
To the north was Caledonia, land not conquered by the Romans. Its people were the Picts. This meant the Scottish were not affected by the Romans in the same way the English were.
Hadrian's Wall was a continuous Roman defensive barrier that guarded the northwestern frontier of the province of Britain from barbarian invaders.
The wall extended from coast to coast across the width of northern Britain for 73 miles, 118 kilometers, and was a powerful symbol of Roman military might.
Hadrian's Wall, also called the Roman Wall, Picts' Wall, or Valum Hadriani in Latin, was a defensive fortification in the Roman province of Britannia, begun in 122 AD, during the reign of the Emperor Hadrian.
Hadrian's Wall ran from the banks of the River Tyne near the North Sea to the Solway Firth on the Irish Sea, and was the northern limit of the Roman Empire, immediately north of which were the lands of the northern ancient Britons, including the Picts.
Hadrian's Wall did not actually mark the boundary between England and Scotland. It lies entirely within England, and has never formed the Anglo-Scottish border.
It is less than 6/10 of a mile, 1 kilometers, south of the border with Scotland in the west at Banasant-Solway. However, in the east at Wallsend, it is as much as 68 miles, 109 kilometers, away.
The Antonine Wall was another Roman frontier barrier in Britain. It was constructed 20 years after Hadrian's Wall, in the years after 142 AD, on the orders of the Emperor Antoninus Pius. This wall extended about 36 miles, 58 kilometers, across Scotland between the River Clyde and the Firth of Forth.
The Antonine Wall was of turf and timber on a stone base, and in front was a ditch up to 40 feet, 12 meters, wide and 12 feet, 4 meters, deep.
16 forts were built along the wall, and smaller forts were between many of these. All were connected by a road, the Military Way. The Antonine Wall was the northernmost physical barrier in the Roman Empire.
The Roman, and later the Anglo-Saxon invasions of Britain, pushed the Celts who had formerly occupied the entire region to the western and northern extremities, called the Celtic Fringe. This includes Scotland, the Isle of Man, Wales, Cornwall and Ireland.
On the mainland, the Celts were pushed by the Romans, and later the Germanic tribes from the east to Brittany on the western edge of France, and the regions of Galicia, Asturias, and Cantabria in the northwest corner of Spain.
The Vikings were accomplished seamen, and around 800 AD, they began migrating from Norway and Denmark. They crossed the North Sea to trade and settle in Scotland.
This shows the Viking homelands in Scandinavia, and Viking settlements in the British Isles. While the Vikings began to settle in the west, the Picts were establishing a new kingdom called the Kingdom of Alba.
This shows the Viking settlements in the west and north of Scotland from 700 to 1200 AD.
The Kingdom of Scotland, in Gaelic, Rochna H. Alba, and in Scots, Kinrick o' Scotland, lasted from 843 until 1707. It was finally united to form the Kingdom of Great Britain, under the terms of the Acts of Union, in 1707.
The motto of Scotland is Nemo me impuneless esset, or, no one provokes me with impunity. It is used by the Order of the Thistle, and on later versions of the Royal Coat of Arms.
Macbeth is perhaps one of the best-known early Scottish kings, and was immortalized forever in Shakespeare's play. Macbeth ruled as King of Alba from 1040 to his death in battle in 1057.
In the 12th century the kingdom of Alba continued to grow, and became a feudal society.
During the reigns of Alexander II and then Alexander III, more land was turned over to agriculture. Trade with the continent bolstered the economy, and monasteries and abbeys grew and flourished around the country.
Chapter 6. Wars of Independence. The Wars of Scottish Independence were many military campaigns fought between Scotland and England in the late 13th and early 14th centuries.
A succession crisis brought unrest to Scotland after the death of Alexander III. England's monarch, Edward I, believed he should be recognized as overlord of Scotland, and his troops marched north and began a series of bloody sieges.
In 1297, Edward's army planned to cross the River Forth at the Stirling Bridge.
The Scots seized the opportunity to attack at the crossing of the Stirling Bridge over the River Forth. This forced the English army to retreat. It was here one of Scotland's most famous figures, William Wallace, aka Braveheart, earned his place in the history books.
Unrest continued into the 14th century, when Robert the Bruce took the throne, and was crowned king in 1306.
The Declaration of Arbroath is a letter written in Latin in 1320, signed by Scottish barons and nobles, and sent to the Pope. The declaration proclaimed Scotland's status as an independent sovereign state.
The Declaration of Arbroath states, "As long as but 100 of us remain alive, never will we on any conditions be brought under English rule. It is in truth not for glory, nor riches, nor honors, that we are fighting, but for freedom, for that alone, which no honest man gives up but with life itself."
Though its effect was largely symbolic, this powerful declaration remains an important document in Scottish history, and many historians believe it inspired America's founding fathers to write the United States Declaration of Independence.
Fighting continued until 1314 at the Battle of Bannockburn, where Robert the Bruce and his army defeated Edward II, a major turning point in his rule.
The cultural, intellectual and artistic movement that took hold around Europe brought significant changes to Scotland. Education, intellectual life, literature, art, architecture, music and politics all advanced in the late 15th century.
1542 Mary Queen of Scots. Mary was just 6 days old when her father, James V, died and she was crowned Queen of Scots. Her reign was marked by Catholic-Protestant conflict and civil unrest.
Elizabeth I of England was concerned about the possibility of a Catholic plot against her. She had Mary imprisoned, and after 19 years of captivity, had her executed in 1567.
In 1603, Queen Elizabeth I of England died, and because she did not have any children, James VI of Scotland, the son of Mary Queen of Scots, became King James I of England.
Chapter 7. The Act of Union 1707. The Kingdom of Scotland was an independent state until 1707, when it joined in a political union with the Kingdom of England, to create a United Kingdom of Great Britain.
This union was the result of the Treaty of Union agreed in 1706 and put into effect by the Acts of Union that were passed by the parliaments of both countries despite widespread protest across Scotland.
Dating to the 12th century, the historic Cross of St. Andrew was first raised in 1512, also known as the Saltire. It's one of the oldest country flags.
The Jacobites were the supporters of the Stuart dynasty, now led by Prince Charles Edward Stuart.
This dynasty is descended from King James I of Scotland, James VI of England, and were called that after the Hebrew original name of Jacob, and later Latin form of James, which is Jacob.
The Battle of Caledonian in 1746 was the final Jacobite rising and the last battle fought on British soil. The Jacobites were no match for English army. The battle lasted just 1 hour, and the Scots army was brutally defeated.
The Duke of Cumberland's decisive defeat of Prince Charles Edward Stuart's Jacobite army in 1746 marked the beginning of the end for the clan system in the Highlands of Scotland.
Shortly after the defeat of the Jacobites at Caledonian, a period known as the Highland Clearances began. A number of laws were introduced in an attempt to assimilate the Highlanders. Speaking Gaelic and wearing traditional tartan attire was banned, and clan chiefs had their rights removed.
The Highland Clearances were the conversion of many small farming plots to large grazing areas for sheep and cattle.
This caused the forced eviction of inhabitants of the Highlands and Western Islands of Scotland, most from 1750 to 1860. This resulted in a large emigration from Scotland to the US, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand.
When Ireland was joined in 1801, the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland was created.
The new flag of the United Kingdom is made up from the flags of Scotland, St. Andrew's Cross; England, the Cross of St. George; and Ireland, the Cross of St. Patrick.
This flag of the United Kingdom is a combination of the flags of Scotland, England, and Ireland.
Scottish soldiers played a significant role in the First World War.
Clydeside near Glasgow was an important centre during the war as well, with products from the shipyards, steelworks and iron foundries that were vital to the war effort.
1967 North Sea oil. The drilling of the first North Sea oil well was considered a major industrial achievement of the time, creating a huge supporting industry in Scotland and giving the UK access to oil produced close to home for the first time.
This shows the location of the oil wells in the North Sea.
1990s, Scottish culture worldwide. Films like Braveheart and Trainspotting helped to establish Scotland as a major cultural influence. Authors, artists and musicians from Scotland were enjoying renewed success.
J.K. Rowling wrote the very successful Harry Potter books in Edinburgh.
In 1997, scientists from the Roslin Institute of the University of Edinburgh successfully cloned the first mammal from an adult cell, Dolly, the sheep.
Chapter 8. The Scottish Enlightenment. The Age of Enlightenment, 1750 and onwards. The ideas from philosophers living in Scotland during the Age of Enlightenment shaped the modern world.
The intellectual movement sought to understand the natural world and the human mind and ranged across philosophy, chemistry, geology, engineering, technology, poetry, medicine, economics and history.
Figures like Thomas Hobbes, David Hume, Adam Smith, Robert Burns and Sir Walter Scott are still celebrated for their achievements.
Although historically Scotland has been one of Europe's poorest countries, it has contributed much to political and practical theories of progress.
The contributions in the Scottish Enlightenment were made by philosophers such as Francis Hutcheson, Douglas Stewart, Adam Smith, and David Hume.
They viewed humankind as a product of history and the pursuit of happiness as an inalienable right. This progressive ideal contributed substantially to the development of modern democracy.
Scots have also played a vital role in many of the world's most important scientific and technological innovations.
With inventors, engineers, and entrepreneurs such as Alexander Graham Bell, James Watt, Andrew Carnegie, and John Macadam extending Scotland's reach far beyond the small country's borders.
Major contributions to English language literature were made by historian Thomas Carlyle, poet Robert Burns, and novelist Muriel Spark.
During the 18th and 19th centuries, Edinburgh flourished as a cultural centre. It was the home of writers Robert Burns, James Boswell, and Sir Walter Scott, philosopher David Hume, economist Adam Smith, and physicist James Clerk Maxwell.
Robert Burns, 1759 to 1796, became the national poet of Scotland, who wrote lyrics and songs in Scots and in English. He was also known for his rebellion against orthodox religion and morality.
These are some of the most notable works penned by Robert Burns.
James Boswell, 1740 to 1795, was a friend and biographer of Samuel Johnson, Life of Johnson, in 2 volumes, 1791. The 20th century publication of his journals proved him to be also one of the world's greatest diarists.
Sir Walter Scott, 1771 to 1832, was a Scottish novelist, poet, historian, and biographer who is often considered both the inventor and the greatest practitioner of the historical novel.
Some of Scott's most notable works are Ivanhoe in 1819, Waverley in 1814, and The Lady of the Lake in 1810.
David Hume, 1711 to 1776, was a Scottish Enlightenment philosopher, historian, economist, and essayist, who is best known today for his highly influential system of philosophical empiricism, skepticism, and naturalism.
Adam Smith, 1723 to 1790, was a Scottish economist, philosopher and author as well as a moral philosopher, a pioneer of political economy and a key figure during the Scottish Enlightenment. He is also known as the father of economics, or the father of capitalism.
Smith wrote 2 classic works, The Theory of Moral Sentiments, 1759, and An Inquiry into the Nature and Causes of the Wealth of Nations, 1776, often abbreviated as The Wealth of Nations.
The Wealth of Nations is considered to be the magnum opus of Adam Smith, and the first modern work of economics in his work. He laid the foundations of classical free market economic theory. The Wealth of Nations was a precursor to the modern academic discipline of economics.
In this and other works, Adam Smith introduced his theory of absolute advantage, developed the concept of division of labor, and explained how rational self-interest and competition can lead to economic prosperity.
James Clerk Maxwell, 1831 to 1879, was a Scottish physicist best known for his formulation of electromagnetic theory. He is regarded by most modern physicists as the scientist of the 19th century who had the greatest influence on 20th century physics, and is ranked with Newton and Einstein for his contributions.
John Napier, 1550 to 1617, was a Scottish mathematician, physicist, and astronomer. He is best known as the discoverer of logarithms that paved the way for much further advancement in mathematics, astronomy, dynamics, and other areas of physics.
James Watt, 1736 to 1819, was a Scottish instrument maker and inventor whose improvements to the steam engine contributed substantially to the Industrial Revolution.
Alexander Fleming, 1881 to 1955, was Scottish bacteriologist best known for his discovery of penicillin in 1928. This started the antibiotic revolution, and was an achievement for which he received the Nobel Prize in 1945. Chapter 9. Modern Scotland.
In 1997, a majority of voters in Scotland chose to have their own Scottish Parliament, which was set up in 1999.
The Scottish Parliament reconvened in 1999. For the first time in nearly 300 years since the Act of Union in 1707.
This is the Scottish Parliament building at the foot of the Royal Mile, opened officially in 2004.
There are 129 members of the Scottish Parliament.
The calls for more devolved powers had been growing for decades, and resulted in a referendum in 1979. A second referendum was held in September 1997, with the vote delivering greater powers in 2014. The people of Scotland voted their response to the question: should Scotland be an independent country?
The result of the 2014 referendum was that of the almost 3 million ballots that were cast, 55% voted for Scotland to remain as part of the UK in another referendum in 2016. 62% voted to stay in the European Union.
It is interesting to note that although Scotland lost her political independence when becoming part of the United Kingdom in 1707, it benefited greatly economically and in trade being opened up with the entire British Empire, and also the doors of emigration being opened up as well.
In recent years, whereas England has voted to leave the European Union Brexit, a solid majority of Scots have favoured remaining in the EU.
Scotland's legal system is separate from those of England, Wales, and Northern Ireland, and Scotland constitutes a distinct jurisdiction in public and in private law.
The continued independence of Scots law, the Scottish education system, and the Church of Scotland have all contributed to the continuation of Scottish culture and Scottish national identity since the Union in 1707.
Chapter 10. Languages of Scotland. The official languages of Scotland are English, Scots, and Gaelic.
English is spoken by most people, 99%, in Scotland, with about 30% also being conversant in Scots, and only 1% in Gaelic.
This is the geographic distribution of Scots and Gaelic speakers in Scotland.
This shows the development of the historic Indo-European languages of Scotland.
In 1800 there were 300,000 monolingual Gaelic speakers. It is unclear how many bilingual Gaelic English speakers there were in 1800. There are 57,000 bilingual speakers today.
Gaelic is in the Celtic language family, once widely prevalent in Europe. Only 1.1%, or just 57,000 of Scotland's people speak Scottish Gaelic, now mostly in the Western Hebrides.
This is a road sign in English and Gaelic.
Scots, which is sometimes incorrectly called Scottish English, is a West Germanic language, very similar to English, that is spoken in Scotland. It is not the same as the Scottish Gaelic, which is a Celtic language.
Scots was originally a form of Old English that diverged from southern forms of the language in the Middle Ages, becoming a separate national tongue by the 15th century.
Union with England and other factors caused English gradually to be adopted as the official and standard language. However, Scots survives in the lowland areas, in a vigorous tradition of poetry and drama, and in aspects of the English spoken by most Scots.
There have been disagreements about the linguistic, historical and social status of Scots. Broad Scots is at one end of a scale and Scottish Standard English is at the other.
These are some examples of Scots words.
These are more examples of Scotch words.
These are more examples of Scots words.
These are more examples of Scotch words.
These are more examples of Scots words.
These are some Scottish place names. Place names in Scotland often have common prefixes, many derived from Gaelic or Norse. Ordinary words like glen and glen also appear frequently in place names. Here are a few sample prefixes.
A good example of Scots English is the poem Auld Lang Syne by Robert Burns.
Here is the poem, Auld Lang Syne by Robert Burns, with the original verse in Scots, in English translation, and a phonetic version of the original Scotch version.
These are more verses of the poem Auld Lang Syne by Robert Burns.
These are more verses of the poem Auld Lang Syne by Robert Burns.
Chapter 11. Religion. Scotland is relatively free from ethnic and religious strife. The Church of Scotland, Presbyterian in structure and evangelical in doctrine, is the established religion and largest communion, though membership has been steadily declining.
The Church of Scotland, in Scottish Gaelic, Eglais na Alba, known informally by its Scotch language name, the Kirk, is a Presbyterian church in the National Church of Scotland.
The Kirk is controlled by a hierarchy of church courts.
These range from the Kirk session, governing the affairs of a congregation, up to the presbytery, covering a group of parishes.
And then to the General Assembly, at which clergy and lay representatives meet annually in Edinburgh.
The Church of Scotland traces its roots back to the beginnings of Christianity in Scotland, but it was principally shaped by the Reformation of 1560.
The current membership of the Church of Scotland is about 14% of the Scottish population, although according to recent census, 42% of the Scottish population claims some form of allegiance to it.
John Knox, circa 1513 to 1572, was a Scottish minister, theologian, and writer who was a leader of the country's Reformation and was the founder of the Presbyterian Church of Scotland.
Chapter 12. The economy of Scotland. Scotland remains a small but open economy and accounts for about 5% of the United Kingdom's export revenue. Its gross domestic product, GDP, per capita is higher than in all other areas of the United Kingdom outside London and England's eastern regions.
This shows the components of the economy of Scotland. It is heavily oriented towards the services sector, especially in tourism.
This shows the employment in Scotland by industry.
Heavy industry in Scotland received a boost from the emerging wind energy sector in the early 21st century, and the manufacture and installation of onshore and offshore turbines accounts for thousands of jobs.
The special facilities built to provide rigs and platforms for exploiting the North Sea oil and gas reserves have experienced fluctuating demand, and some of them have closed.
Distilleries in the Highlands and the Northeast produce the Scotch whisky, for which the country is internationally famous. Whisky sales have continued to increase despite heavy taxes on home consumption.
The appeal of Scotch whisky in foreign countries remains high, and whisky is one of Scotland's leading exports.
The best-selling Scotch whisky brands are Johnnie Walker, Ballantine's, Grant's, Chivas Regal, J&B, William Lawson's, William Peel, Dewar's, and Label 5.
Electronics and related industries have been a major source of economic growth, employment, and export earnings.
Manufacturers in the Midland Valley, which has been nicknamed Silicon Glen because of its high-technology sector, have produced many of Europe's computers and electronic machinery.
Silicon Glen is a nickname for the high-tech sector of Scotland. The name inspired by Silicon Valley in California.
The term Silicon Glen is applied to the Central Belt Triangle between Dundee, Inverclyde and Edinburgh, which includes Fife, Glasgow and Stirling, although electronics facilities outside this area may also be included in the term.
The term Silicon Glen has been in use since the 1980s. It does not technically represent a glen, as it covers a much wider area than just one valley.
These are the leading companies in the Silicon Glen of Scotland.
Chapter 13. The Firth of Forth. The word Firth generally refers to a long and narrow inlet or estuary of the sea coast. Many firths or fjords formed during the last ice age, as is the case of the Firth of Forth.
The Firth of Forth is now the estuary or firth of Scotland's River Forth, which is tidal as far inland as Stirling. It flows into the North Sea, between Fife to the north, and West Lothian, the city of Edinburgh, and East Lothian to the south.
This is the Firth of Forth, showing the three bridges.
These are three bridges across the Firth of Forth built in 3 different centuries. These the iconic bridges are must-see sites in Scotland.
The famous Forth Bridge was opened in 1890. It is still in operation as a railroad bridge. It is UNESCO World Heritage Site.
The Firth Road Bridge in the middle was opened in 1964 and stretches 1.5 miles or 2.5 kilometers. It is the only bridge of the three for pedestrians.
The Queen's Ferry Crossing Bridge opened in 2017. It is the newest road bridge across the Firth of Forth.
The oldest bridge across the Firth of Forth is the Forth Bridge. It is a cantilever railway bridge, 9 miles, 14 kilometers, west of the centre of Edinburgh.
The Forth Bridge is considered a symbol of Scotland, having been voted Scotland's greatest man-made wonder, and it is also UNESCO World Heritage Site. It is sometimes referred to as the Forth Rail Bridge, to distinguish it from the adjacent Forth Road Bridge.
Construction of the Forth Bridge began in 1882, and it was opened in 1890. To this day it continues to operate as an important passenger and freight rail bridge. The bridge spans the Forth between the villages of South Queensferry and North Queensferry.
The Forth Bridge was the world's earliest great multi-span cantilever bridge, and has a total length of 1.5 miles, 2.5 kilometers. When it opened it had the longest single cantilever bridge span in the world, until 1919 when the Quebec Bridge in Canada was completed.
The Forth Bridge continues to be the world's second longest single cantilever span, with a span of 1,709 feet, 521 meters.
The Forth Road Bridge is a suspension bridge that opened in 1964. At the time it was the largest suspension bridge in the world outside the U.S.
The Forth Road Bridge replaced a ferry service and carries vehicular traffic, cyclists, and pedestrians across the Forth.
The Queen's Ferry Crossing Bridge was completed in 2017. It carries the M90 motorway across the Firth of Forth between Edinburgh at South Queensferry and Fife at North Queensferry.
The bridge is a cable-stayed structure, with 3 towers each 679 feet, 207 meters, high. Including approaches, the overall length of the bridge is 1.7 miles, 2.7 kilometers, making it the longest triple-tower cable-stayed bridge in the world.
Chapter 14. Lochs. A loch is a large area of water in Scotland that is completely, or almost completely surrounded by land. It is often a fjord formed by a glacier that has no direct opening to the sea.
Loch Lomond is the largest loch, or lake, in Scotland, and the largest lake in all of Great Britain by surface area.
This loch contains many islands, including Inchmurren, the largest freshwater island in the British Isles. Loch Lomond is a popular leisure destination and is featured in song, The Bonnie Banks o' Loch Lomond.
Loch Lomond is a popular leisure destination and is featured in song, The Bonnie Banks o' Loch Lomond.
Loch Lomond lies on the Highland Boundary Fault, on the boundary between the lowlands of central Scotland and the Highlands. It is 24 miles, 39 kilometers, long, and varies between 0.75 mile, 1.21 kilometers, and 5 miles, 8 kilometers, in width.
Loch Lomond has an average depth of about 121 feet, 37 meters, and a maximum depth of about 620 feet, 190 meters. Its surface area is 27 square miles, 71 square kilometers. And it has a volume of 0.62 cubic miles, 2.6 cubic kilometers.
Of all lochs and lakes in Great Britain, Loch Lomond is the largest by surface area, and the second largest, after Loch Ness, by water volume.
Within the United Kingdom, Loch Lomond is surpassed only by Loch Ness and Lower Loch Erne in Northern Ireland. In the British Isles as a whole, there are several larger lochs in the Republic of Ireland.
By yon bonny banks and by yon bonny braes, where the sun shines bright on Loch Lomond, where me and my true love were ever wont to gae, on the bonny, bonny banks of Loch Lomond. O ye take the high road, and I'll take the low road, and I'll be in Scotland afore ye, but me and my true love will never meet again, on the bonny, bonny banks of Loch Lomond. 'Twas there that we parted in yon shady glen, on the steep, steep side of Ben Lomond, where in purple hue the Hieland hills we view, and the moon coming out in the gloaming.
Loch Ness is a large, deep, freshwater loch in the Scottish Highlands in the Great Glen. It extends for approximately 23 miles, 37 kilometers, southwest from Inverness. Its surface is 16 meters, 52 feet, above sea level.
Loch Ness is the second largest Scottish loch by surface area at 56 square kilometers, 22 square miles, after Loch Lomond. However, but due to its great depth, it is the largest by volume in the British Isles.
The deepest point of Loch Ness is 755 feet, 230 meters, making it the second deepest loch in Scotland after Loch Morar.
Loch Ness contains more fresh water than all the lakes in England and Wales combined, and is the largest body of water in the Glenmore, or Great Glen, which runs from Inverness in the north to Fort William in the south.
The water visibility of Loch Ness is exceptionally low due to a high peat content in the surrounding soil.
Loch Ness is best known for alleged sightings of the mythical Loch Ness Monster, also known affectionately as Nessie.
Urquhart Castle was once one of Scotland's largest castles. It saw great conflict during its 500 years as a medieval fortress, with control of the castle passing back and forth between the Scots and English during the Wars of Independence.
The last of the troops garrisoned here during the Jacobite risings from 1688 and 1746 blew up the castle when they left. Urquhart's iconic ruins remain, offering glimpses into medieval times in the lives of its noble residents.
This is the Urquhart Castle, and a cruise boat on Loch Ness.
There are cruises on Loch Ness that offer a 1-hour cruise on Loch Ness, and a 1-hour visit to Urquhart Castle.
Loch Ness forms part of the route of the Caledonian Canal.
The outlet of Loch Ness is the River Ness, which flows into the Moray Firth at Inverness.
Chapter 15 The Caledonian Canal.
The Caledonian Canal connects the Scottish east coast at Inverness with the west coast at Corpatch near Fort William in Scotland.
The Caledonian Canal was constructed in the early 19th century by the famous Scottish civil engineer and architect Thomas Telford. In addition to the canal, Telford's crowning achievement was the design and construction of the Menai Bridge in Wales from 1819 to 1826.
The Caledonian Canal runs some 60 miles, 97 kilometers, from northeast to southwest through the Great Glen of Scotland. Only 1/3 of the entire length is man-made, the rest being formed by Loch Dutchfer, Loch Ness, Loch Oich, and Loch Lochy.
These lochs are located in the Glen More, or Great Glen, a geological fault in the Earth's crust.
This is the Glenmore, or the Great Glen cutting through the Highlands of Scotland.
There are 29 lochs, including 8 at Neptune's Staircase, 4 aqueducts, and 10 bridges in the course of the canal.
This is a map of the Caledonian Canal.
Before the Caledonian Channel was built, sailing vessels had to go around Cape Wrath and cross the hazardous Pentland Firth to sail from west to east, or vice versa.
In the period just after the Highland clearances, there was much unemployment in the Highlands. That was part of the reason why a survey for a canal was carried out by James Watt for the Caledonian Canal Commission in 1773.
Thomas Telford and William Jessup started their survey, design, and construction of the waterway in 1803, and the canal finally opened for navigation in 1822, although completion was not until 1847.
The Caledonian Canal was formerly of great economic importance, but it is now used only by fishing and pleasure craft, because it is too small to accommodate modern ocean-going vessels.
Due to the beautiful scenery, the canal became popular as a tourist attraction. Queen Victoria took a trip along it in 1873, and publicity surrounding the trip resulted in a large increase in people visiting the region and the canal.
The arrival of the railways at Fort William, Fort Augustus, and Inverness did little to harm the canal, as trains were scheduled to connect with steamboat services.
The canal is now a scheduled ancient monument, and attracts over 500,000 visitors each year.
Chapter 16. The climate of Scotland. Will it be hot, or will it be cold in Scotland?
The climate of Scotland is temperate and oceanic, and tends to be very changeable. It is warmed by the Gulf Stream from the Atlantic, and as such has much milder winters, but cooler and wetter summers than areas on similar latitudes, as for example Labrador, Canada, or Moscow.
However, temperatures in Scotland are generally lower than in the rest of the UK, with the coldest ever UK temperature of -27 degrees Celsius, -17 degrees Fahrenheit, recorded in the Grampian Mountains. The highest temperature ever recorded was 33 degrees Celsius, 91 degrees Fahrenheit, in 2003.
The western coast of Scotland gets very large amounts of rainfall from the Atlantic Ocean, whereas the east coast gets just a moderate amount of rain, between 600 and 700 millimeters, around 25 inches, a year. The Western Highlands gets inundated with up to 2,000 to 3,000 millimeters, 80 to 120 inches, a year.
This map shows the average annual sunshine duration in Scotland. There is a total of 8,760 hours in a year. So the Highlands in the northwest has sunshine only about 8 to 12% of the day. The most sunshine is in the lowlands, but even there it is only about 13 hours, or 15% of the day.
Here are the average high and low temperatures in degrees Fahrenheit throughout the year in Edinburgh. We see moderate temperatures in the summer, and chilly, but not extremely cold winters.
Here are the average high and low temperatures in degrees Celsius throughout the year in Edinburgh.
Here is the average monthly precipitation in inches throughout the year in Edinburgh. The rainfall is moderate throughout the year, but there are many rainy days.
Here is the average monthly precipitation in millimeters throughout the year in Edinburgh.
Here is the average number of days with precipitation in Edinburgh. We see that there is rain or snow on the average 80% of the days, almost throughout the year. Although the total annual precipitation is just 26 inches or 660 millimeters.
Here are the average high and low temperatures in degrees Fahrenheit throughout the year in Inverness.
Here are the average high and low temperatures in degrees Celsius throughout the year in Inverness.
Here is the average monthly precipitation in inches throughout the year in Inverness.
Here is the average monthly precipitation in millimeters throughout the year in Inverness.
Here is the average number of days with precipitation in Inverness. We see that there is rain or snow on the average 60% of the days, almost throughout the year. Although the total annual precipitation is just 25 inches or 640 millimeters. Recommended videos, Scotland, Part 1.
Recommended video, The Captivating History of Scotland.
Recommended video, Scotland Vacation Travel Video Guide.
Recommended video, Top 10 Things Invented in Scotland. 1 minute. 37 seconds.
Recommended video, The Scots Language, or Dialect. 16 minutes. 33 seconds.
Recommended video, BBC Coast, the Caledonian Canal. 11 minutes. 39 seconds. Scotland Table of Contents.